I think one of the most painful things that I went through was having a big number of young people who were very enthusiastic and who had reported in teaching institutions, training institutions, being told that they had to pack up and leave.
Western countries, they were championing for that case. They wanted President Uhuru Kenyatta and President Ruto go through the trial. Has this had any impact on your career?
It was a very, very great honor. It was a privilege. There was no way that I was going to let it go.
Hello viewers, welcome to a one-on-one interview with Ambassador Amina Mohamed, former Minister for Foreign Ministry, Education, Sport, and also she's a veteran diplomat. In this short interview, we'll be covering a bit about her early life, her career, and also generally her life experiences. First of all, let me take this opportunity to welcome our guest today, Amina Mohamed, to our one-on-one interview. Ambassador, welcome to our interview.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Suleiman.
Thank you for accepting our request for an interview. So first of all, let's start with brief history about yourself.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Amb.Amina Mohamed, and I was born and brought up in a place called Kakamega, which is in the western part of this country, of my country. I left home at a very early age to go abroad to school. After completing my primary school and my secondary and high school in Kenya, I think that what I did and where I ended up is really God's will. It's God's will. I had the wish and the desire to serve my country in public service because of my roots that were extremely humble, and so I, in a way, I was attracted to working in a space that I would be supportive and helpful, to others, and hopefully to the largest number of Kenyans that I could help, and so. I think my desires were fulfilled by the grace of God. I always wanted to be a lawyer, and I read a lot of books on law, even as a young growing up child. But again, I think your journey is determined for you, and in most cases, if you just work hard enough and are committed, then that journey, ends up where God intends it to end up. And I think that mine ended up by me joining government at a very early age, going through the ranks in government, from a cadet actually in government, which is really the lowest level, and climbing the ranks as time went on. In that journey, I was lucky enough to serve my country in missions abroad. Came back, did some stint collecting the concerns of Muslims in Kenya as a secretary to a task force that the president set up, and I think it was one of the tasks that I enjoyed the most because it allowed me to actually understand the concerns that were there, the opportunities that existed, but also how broad that community was, because it could be found everywhere.
Okay, allow me to cut you short. I'd like to go back to some of the things that you have mentioned and elaborate on some of them, especially what inspired you to pursue law. Is it the books that you have been reading, or there was someone that you have been looking up to?
Oh no, it was mainly the books I was reading, but also my desire for fairness. I think growing up at that time, when I grew up, being a young lady from my community, exposed me, I think, more than anything else to that need to pursue a career that would allow for fairness, for justice, would open up opportunities in spaces that we hadn't been in before. And so it was a combination of all that that I think that encouraged me in many ways to pursue the career that I did.
Yeah, you have studied law in Kiev and also Kenya School of Law. That passion to help people get justice, has it come to pass, or what I mean is, have you ever appeared for a client in a court?
No, I didn't practice law.
You didn't practice law?
I didn't practice law at all. Immediately I finished my, my legal education, I went into government. Immediately after university, actually. I even did my school of law after I had joined government. After I joined government. And so I started it, joined government, and continued. And so, so I never practiced law. I still intend to do that now. I've renewed my practicing certificate every time that it needed to be renewed, in the hope that I would do that one day. But I haven't done that yet. I think maybe because, and I probably am not the only one who hasn't pursued that line, because my inclination was to negotiate agreements, which lawyers also do, negotiate agreements, cover a career in human rights, protection, carve a career in drafting of legal instruments. Yeah? And so law is very, very broad. It's very broad. It's also very, very dynamic. And you'll find that many people who studied law do not necessarily have to go to court. They necessarily don't have to go to the bench.
But you have helped formulate some policies?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that throughout my life, throughout government, government formulates policies and enacts laws. And I've been involved in both.
You have been in the diplomat career for over 3 decades. You joined the United Nations and you have served in different capacity in the United Nations.
Correct.
So how did you end up in the United Nations?
Oh, because I was head-hunted and asked to apply. It wasn't, I was PS Justice then. We had just completed the Constitution. It had been a very interesting journey for me, personally. Being a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Justice and having a constitution born at the time that I was permanent secretary, I think, was one of the highlights of my own life. And after I finished with that, and we had carried out a lot of reforms in government, put in place the Constitutional Implementation Commission, the Commission on Integration, and Truth, Justice and Reconciliation, IBC, all those commissions were set up and were also staffed while I was PS in the Ministry of Justice. And after having done all that, I think it was a good time to move. It wasn't something that I was pursuing, actually. I was just headhunted and told, oh, by the way, there's this opening in Nairobi, it's the highest level, for a Kenyan to have held, and that they'd be very interested in me applying for that job. And so I applied on the day, the last day, actually, just before the deadline expired. And 2 weeks later, I was invited for
interview.
For a cup of tea, actually, a discussion, a conversation. It wasn't a full interview, actually. It was just a conversation with Under Secretary Generals from the UN, including the head of UNEP at that time, And we had a very nice conversation, and I left, went back to the ministry, continued doing what I was doing. Until then I was informed, a few weeks later actually, that I was the leading candidate and that I was going to be appointed. Then I had to go and get, obviously, permission from the then president, the late President Kibaki, who I requested to allow me to go and serve in that capacity.
Then you have climbed up the ladder in the United Nations. While you are at the pinnacle of the United Nations, you have left, and all of a sudden we have seen you in the first cabinet of Uhuru Kenyatta. What has informed that decision?
I don't know. I don't know what informed that decision. I had a 4-year contract with the United Nations. I had served 2 years, and when I was invited to come back into government and become the first woman foreign secretary of the Republic of Kenya. It was a very, very great honor. It was a privilege. There was no way that I was going to let it go, because it was going to be the first time, first of all, that a woman had held the position, and therefore it would be a really good signal to women everywhere in Kenya, but across the continent as well. Even across the continent, I was among the first ones to serve as foreign minister. I think there were at that time maybe 2 others. There was Rwanda, I remember, and there was South Africa. And so it was a wonderful opportunity. It was a good opportunity to be the first one. But also it was a good opportunity to deal with issues that were very challenging for the country at that time. Because we're in a very difficult sport globally. And so I think I took up a challenge. And with the support of His Excellency then, we were able to deal with some of those challenges. So yeah, great privilege, great honor, very, very happy that it happened. Served the full first term, and then moved on to other things. So, but I don't know what informed it. I think one of the reasons may have been that I was, at that point, one of the only, there were very, very few of us left that had served in the ministry from the lowest level, to the highest level. And therefore, I think it was important to have experience as well.
During your tenure at the foreign ministry, a lot of good things happened. Prior to your appointment, or even before the election, there was some the cases against former President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy, now the President, Dr. William Ruto, at the International Criminal Court. You have championed charge against President Uhuru Kenyatta and President Ruto dropped. Can you tell us a bit how you helped our two presidents get their cases dropped?
Well, I was the foreign minister, and I did my job as foreign minister, which was to make sure that the true story of what had actually occurred in this country during the post-election violence, and the true story came out, and therefore I was very vocal in telling that story, because I felt very strongly that until then the story had not been fully told. It hadn't been fully told, and so there was confusion, right, about the whole case. And so I was able to I think, articulate the facts around the cases, I think much clearer. And I also had, over the years, developed obviously friendships and networks across the world who trusted what I said, who knew that I wasn't going to lie to them, and who also knew that I stood for something. And therefore, when I came out, when I agreed to take the job, first of all, I remember that in the House of Lords, one of the Lords said, well, we're really happy that Amina is handling the foreign ministry, and therefore I think the government should be given a chance, right? And it's actually in the records of the House of Lords. And so it just meant that I had dealt with some of these people before, and that they knew that I wasn't going to come to them with fabricated stories, that I was going to come to them with facts, that I knew what the statute of the Rome Statute said, and that I would use it to drive, I think, the cases, to drive this whole conversation forward. But I also wanted to insist that the Rome Statute be applied, in its entirety, right? And that we did not cherry pick. And so you only picked the provisions that were relevant to push a certain agenda. And so I said that very clearly, we are not going to cherry pick. This is the whole package, and we accepted the whole package. We became members of the whole package, and we're going to use this package to show that it actually works, that if you use it properly, that it can deliver. But if you cherry pick, then obviously whatever agenda you're driving is the agenda that will win the day, and will be sold to the international community. So I think in many ways we were very, very lucky. And I think, everything came together. Like I said, the ducks were in one row. And so we're able to get to the end of that journey as we did. And I was also very, very, grateful to the Almighty that actually it happened during the time that I was foreign minister.
Some Western countries, they were championing for that case. They wanted President Uhuru Kenyatta and President Ruto go through the trial. Has this had any impact on your career? I
don't know. I have been told that it may have, but I don't know. I think in any way I'm very, very content. We all did the right thing. We all pursued justice, and I think in the end, justice was actually served.
Among the good things that you have done while you are the foreign minister is you have succeeded Western countries to change their heart toward the country, and also we had in 2015 President Barack Obama visit. Tell us what has led to the Obama's visit, and how we have benefited from that visit.
I think that this was, like I said, it's a journey. It's a journey. I think we did the right things. We said the right things. We did the right things. We were open. We wanted to communicate. We wanted to interact with the rest of the world. We didn't want to shut ourselves away, and because we were clear about it, right? We were also embraced in that way. And there were very many highlights. It wasn't just about one incident or another. I think it was a combination of events, of incidents that made it a very, very powerful period in the history of our country, coming out of where we were coming from. And I'm happy to see that it is continuing, to get better and better. I think the worst thing that can happen is to have successes, and then after that nothing happens. But the fact that we've continued on a good trajectory, and we're in a good place now, I think that all speaks to the to the way that we've started the journey, right? We're clear-minded. We were very, very objective. We were frank with ourselves. We were very practical. We knew exactly what we wanted. And I think we did not want to take advantage of any situation of anybody. We wanted to play a role in the region, but we wanted to be part of the wider world, and we did not want to be left out. And I think all of us did what we needed to do to get there.